you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another fascinating episode of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Jen Peoples. Last week, I got invited to a wedding with my girlfriend's family, and had a great time. Also had an interesting discussion with some relatives who don't agree with the purpose of the show, about the show being offensive.
Okay, so what's offensive?
What's offensive? You know, I'm not going to talk directly about our conversation with them because I know that they're aware of the show, and I think that's rude. But I do want to sort of, you know, discuss the general notion of how it's offensive to some people. I think my understanding from the conversation was basically that it's not right to directly go after people's religious beliefs and try to take away their faiths. And in some sense, I think that it's impossible to avoid being offensive doing the kind of show we do, because people are naturally ready to take offense when their religion is challenged in some way.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be offensive on the show.
Yeah, that's
it's not our intent. But basically, you know, we're not here to try to convert anybody. First of all, I mean, you know, we're not an evangelism show. I've talked in the past about atheist evangelism and how I kind of enjoy it. But what we're here for is two things. One is, you know, promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state, which is another way of saying outreach, trying to you know, bring more atheists to benefit from the social activities of the Atheist Community of Austin. And the other is, oh boy, people who talk about being offended at their religion being challenged do not hesitate in return to say the most horrible things about other religions and atheism, which is not a religion, but about people's lack of religion. Somebody quoted to me, "The fool has said in his heart there is no God," which I'm used to because it's a giant freaking cliche. But it's like, you're telling me that you are insulted by my discussing your religion in a critical way, but you are here telling me that I'm a fool to my face. Interesting. So, I don't know, basically all I want to say is, at some point you have to, I mean, I think it's right and reasonable to have a discussion about people's conception of reality, because, I mean, you know, there's a long tradition of philosophers who actually want to talk about that position, because, I mean, you know, people have different opinions, and I think that hiding from each other's opinions and just not discussing it is not a good way to interact with each other. I mean, you know, I suppose one solution would be if everyone would agree to suddenly have the same opinion and all agree with each other, which I'm sure Christians would prefer. But, you know, that hasn't been happening in a couple, you know, 10,000 years of recorded human history. And I don't see it happening now. So, I mean, I think that actually communicating about differences of opinion in the meantime is kind of, you know, a necessary stopgap. Do you ever offend anybody?
I'm sure I do. Or, I think it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you just sit down and say nothing.
Right. Which some people would also like.
Well, yeah, and you know, I would say that for every person who emails us telling us how much we've offended them by challenging them to support their beliefs through logic and reason, we probably get 10 emails from atheists who say, thank you for what you're doing.
Right.
I thought I was the only one.
A lot of email from people who are like embarrassed to, or uncomfortable with the notion they don't believe in God. Their whole families are religious. Most of the people they know are religious, and people being social creatures want to sit down and discuss what they think.
Yeah.
And yet, people who are in that kind of situation, which you and I are not, can get frustrated because they don't feel like they have an outlet. They don't have anyone to talk to about what they think. And so a lot of people find it very liberating when they realize, oh, there's people out here who not only think the way I think, but are willing to intellectually defend what I think.
Right.
And I don't expect everyone who watches the show to agree with us all the time. I mean, people who mostly agree with us even should not be expected to just take what we say here on the show and treat it as gospel, so to speak. But it feels good to me to have an opportunity to sit down and talk about this stuff and invite the disagreement, and invite the disagreement from other atheists as well as theists who might be watching and just be offended at the notion that we're challenging them.
Yeah.
So,
well, and one of the things is, I don't want to live in an echo chamber where the only views that I ever hear are things I already agree with. I'd much rather have my views challenged from time to time and have to come up with a way of defending them on my own. And so I try to read something that I know I'm going to disagree with at least a couple of times a week, because I think that, sometimes I change my mind about things. I get new information, or I find an argument particularly compelling. But, if you live in an echo chamber and you don't expose yourself to other views, then, you kind of get stagnant. And
that's right. I mean, Matt always liked to say, I would like to have as many true beliefs and as few false beliefs as possible. And I suppose one way to feel like you've arrived there is to just tune out everyone who disagrees with you.
Yeah.
And that way you can only talk to people who reinforce what you already think, and then you can feel like, hey, I'm right about everything. But when it comes to being right and wrong, there are, in many cases, I mean, there are matters of opinion, but there are also matters of fact, where whether you're right or not depends on how well your belief actually sort of syncs up to the real world.
Right.
And if you don't want to just be stuck with a rigid set of beliefs and not know when the corresponding when the corresponding fact may disagree with you, that's fine for some people, but I think that the only way to actually weed out the problems that you have with your beliefs is to come up with people who disagree and see how reasonable they can be. And if you wind up changing your mind, I'd say that that's a good thing, because it means that you probably realized you were wrong about something, and therefore now you're probably right.
Well, and this gets back to, we got an email not that long ago from a guy who said, hey, it was something to the effect of, don't say you don't know. And I said, no. If you don't know, if you really don't know, then the answer is, I don't know. And my view on this, and this is what I responded to him, was that I think that claiming that you know something when in fact you don't is a character flaw.
Right.
But in some religions, that's viewed as a sign of virtue.
Yeah.
That you can claim knowledge that you cannot possibly have.
Yeah, I don't like that kind of arrogant, unwarranted certainty that comes with saying you know things all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I try as hard as I can to know everything.
Yeah.
you know, I like to read a little bit about all kinds of subjects. Some of them are less boring to me than others. But, you know, I want to be at a point where I can offer an opinion that is informed by some kind of background reading from somebody who really knows what they're talking about. But there's a lot of stuff I don't know. There's even a lot of stuff that, you know, scientists or the general body of smart people know about, but I just haven't brushed up on it enough. Yeah. And I think it's important to be honest about that.
Well, yeah, and you know, we get emails sometimes from theists who ask us, well, you know, without God, you know, what's your purpose in life? And I mean, one of the things that gets me up in the morning is the fact that I don't know everything. That there's always something new I can learn. And I think that's what makes life interesting, at least for me. I mean, to have this unwarranted certainty about things because it's written in a book of Bronze Age myths, you know, to me, that makes life pretty boring.
Right.
And dark and scary and all kinds of things. So.
Well, I mean, you know, it is a kind of a dark and scary book in a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.